Here we go, buddy.
Best week of the year.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll do another cast later for our Thanksgiving cast, but it is November 23rd, 2021. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast. We are episode 532.
Yes, we are, man.
In a sunny but brisk, cool morning here in Chattanooga. Beautiful start to the week. Most of you have probably mailed it in already and preparing for Thanksgiving. You're traveling. Your kids are at home. You're already taking time off work. The bank's probably already closed. And you're just kind of ready to settle in and enjoy, family, friends, food, and football for the rest of the week. Do a little turkey trotting on Thursday if that's in your wheelhouse. But
you getting out there? Do we got a turkey trot here? I'm sure we
undecided.
Do.
I'm sure there is. I think there's. That's one of those things where you kind of be a late minute entry, I think. And they're like, you show up, race morning, and you're like, yeah, I want to get in. They're like, yeah, just go ahead. It's like, we've already got 30,000 people, unless they're like, giving away pies and stuff, and then they got to account for that. But there's always some kind of a 5K or 10K turkey trot, basically, I think within like 20 minutes of everyone's house on Thanksgiving morning. So I'm sure there's something around here. But yeah, it is Thanksgiving week, the greatest week of the year. It is the greatest holiday of the year. And those of you that have already set up your Christmas decorations, shame on you. But outside of that, we appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, thank you. We have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Lots of options and just podcasts in general. So we appreciate you giving us our time. We cover it all. We do a swim, bike, run specific podcast. We do race recaps. We do race previews. Sometimes we'll have on the occasional guest. We will frequently means once a month. We will hop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be part of that, you can answer one simple question and we'll let you right in. A lot of awesome people in there, some great conversations, a wonderful community. You get athletes from first timers and even athletes who are gearing up for their very first triathlon ever, or even doing just running events. And then you've got people who have won Ironman, you got elite level amateurs, everybody in between. So hop in there, be a part of that. Awesome conversation. So we'll use them to kind of catapult the convo of the day. We'll do Q&As in there like we did 2 weeks ago. And Mike and I, as both coaches, athletes, and best friends, we work with a wide range of athletes across the globe. And it is easy for us as we kind of sift through training peaks and filter through the lives and training of our athletes, again, with a wide range of abilities. There's always kind of a common thread. The common thread that we all have, obviously, is life. And we picked this hobby to do that is triathlon, and it kind of, that's the other common denominator that we have, but that generally gives us a good idea of the pulse of the community and allows us an opportunity to have our own discussions, which is kind of the format of the podcast, just an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, what our athletes are going through, and then it just so happens that what most of you are going through. We have no agenda. That's a lie. I say it all the time. That's a lie. We have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy. But we have no sponsors. We have no ads. And hopefully we can deliver something today in a consumable and digestible way. You can apply it to your own life.
Thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome.
And congratulations.
It is quite strong, and I am feeling it because it's Thanksgiving this week.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you can tell.
You're in your element.
I got a little pep in my step.
Yep. Congratulations on getting up or sleeping in today at 6.
Thank you. I was on Central Time Friday, picked up Payne from school, headed to my mom's, was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, headed back Monday. So I had a little help with the Central Time layover. But I woke up this morning at 6:45, and it was like, I felt like a new man.
Yeah.
It was
more
fantastic.
I boil it down, I think it's all about sleep.
It is all about sleep. It's unquestionably all about sleep. I got in
all about it.
I got in 9 hours, which is just, and I feel like $1 million. So I got a pep in my step today, feeling ready to roll. Sun's out, Thanksgiving's coming. Best day of the year.
It is. But no, seriously, I want to just congratulate you on the 8 years.
Well, to be fair, sometimes it feels like sleeping in is more of a challenge for me. It needs more of a congratulation. But no, I appreciate that. I was headed to...
Well, it always means a lot to me too, obviously, because I was, kind of around it all.
You were a witness.
And, and you said you went to Nashville, and that reminded, just like...
I did, yeah. You were, I think you're at, you came... Anyway, I went to...
Or 1 year.
No, you came to my 1 year. Yeah, I know. And that's... that's, especially for our listeners that picked up this podcast much, much later, as we've improved from terrible to mediocre and have stuck with us, maybe haven't gone back to the beginning. Mike and I's friendship goes back a long time, 10 years, really, close to 10 years, right? Because this is coming up on 10 years. Because I just 8 years sober, and we met at the Calypso Cafe around January, December of the year before, so we're going up on our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, it is. I think it was
in December.
Definitely December. Yeah. It was not January. It was, but anyway.
Anyway, yeah, we digress. But yeah, so I traveled back to Nashville speaking. I always like to go back. I lived in Kansas City, obviously Nashville, and now here in Chattanooga. But I always like to go back to the same AA room, which is the place called the Back Room. It's off Charlotte Pike in Nashville. Is where I got my 24-hour chip for being 24 hours sober. So I like to go back there and get it. And you came with me when I was 1 year when you're sober, so what those meetings are like. And so it was nice. It was interesting because you before the meeting starts, they always ask like if you're from out of town, and I'm like, yeah. So you raise your hand, I'm from Chattanooga. Some other guy said he was from out of town too, and he got his chip before me. He had like 16 years, but he was from out of town too. But he came back to that room because that was the room he got his first chip in. And so I was like, it must be like, somewhat not normal, but not unheard of, I guess. But it is. It's always a special day, for me, and it's definitely the most successful thing I've ever been at, and biggest accomplishment. But yeah, so, our friendship goes back before, you witnessed a lot of my, exploits, as we will call them, and my darkest days. And so, yeah, it's been interesting and fascinating. And I know that a lot of you appreciate what we do with this podcast and our friendship and how we coach and how we display things and the conversations that we have. And I think that's one of the biggest compliments that we get as a podcast, and that it's easy to consume. It's easy to follow along. It's not over people's heads. Not that you and I have really anything to offer that's super intelligent over people's heads, but we're able to do that because, we've always had these conversations for a long time, even before, I got sober and before we started this podcast. We've been around. Yeah. We've been around and witnessed a lot and gone through a lot, and I'm incredibly grateful for our friendship. And it's kind of funny how life works itself out and places it puts you, and you kind of you go through things and you minimize things down to just the most simple things in life in terms of just checking boxes and making it through days, and you don't set really any gigantic goals or expectations outside of just, making it, taking it day to day and seeing what happens next. And now here we are in a training center in Chattanooga 8 years later.
Yeah. And I hear the same thing a lot about how it's people learn a lot, but they can relate to things we're talking about. And I really do think that boils down to the fact that we did have these kind of conversations all along. And like right now, my question is, it's always this analogy sort of driven, like what if or what. So my question is, I know you're probably, I'm going to ask, were you excited? It was 8 years. So I'm trying to always like draw parallels, right? So this is a big day for you. And then I'm like, we always talk about Ironman day and stuff like that and how big of a day it is. But maybe the more you go through, the less, nervous you are, but still excited or anxious, or how that
it's
all
weird.
Played in. Because I feel like you were probably not like super excited, but it was kind of in your bones more than it was in your head.
No, it's very true. And I'm I still see the same therapist I saw when I was back at the ranch, and like we talk every single time I have a session with him. But like we always come back to how similar being in recovery is to coaching and training, because it's at its most rawest form. It's like, you just kind of work hard every day. You just kind of do what's expected of you. You don't do anything crazy. And then you just kind of end up where you are, but it's about being consistent, and things like that. And no, it wasn't, I'll say this I'm very grateful in that most every day I forget that I'm an alcoholic. And I feel very grateful for that, because relapse hasn't been part of my story. And hopefully it will never be. And so Excited. I'm never really excited. I think I feel a whole lot of gratitude. Like I feel an enormous amount of gratitude when I go to pick up these chips. Because it was once you get past a year, you just go once a year, right? It's like in the beginning, everybody likes free stuff. Everybody likes chips and shirts and tokens, and so like, well, it's true. I mean, it's true. Like you get
another chip tonight,
but I mean, you get like when you get started, you get, because I'm gonna know like 99.9% of you guys are unfamiliar with AA and probably alcoholism in general, but you get a 24-hour chip, and then a 1 month, and then a 3 month, and then a 6 month, and then 9 month, and a year. So they kind of like start you off like, yeah, we're going to get you a chip and get an applause. And then after a year, it's like, dude, once a year, baby. Like, you've done the deal, you know what to do. Let's not make more of a deal out of this than needs to be done. And then you get like these certain types of chips up until 10, then you get different types. So it's all about the chips, man. It's all about the free stuff. It's all about the free stuff at the conference. But no, it's more just gratitude, because I remember going to my very first meeting there, and I remember looking around. It was a depressing meeting. It was pitch black outside. It was 7:00 on a Wednesday night. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember looking around the room, and I thought to myself, "Fuck, this is going to be my life." It was just one of those like really, because AA meetings aren't always like uplifting and like rejuvenating, and like sometimes they're just downright depressing because people's lives are hard. And you like walk in room, it's like 40 people looking for therapy, and I was just like looking around the room, and it's just like people just look depressed and sad and old, and I was like, this is gonna be my life. Like I'm gonna be this. And then I just think about all the things that I've gone through, and then where I am and how appreciative I am of where I am. That Hayden has no idea. I'm trying to get emotional. That he has never known me to drink. And so that's probably what I'm the most grateful for when I get up and I get to see him, and that he will, and then hopefully never know me as that version. And then you go into the room and you see guys, they offer 24-hour chips, to guys that are just getting in the room, and the guy sitting next to me picked up his 3-month chip, and you're just so it's so much gratitude in that room to be surrounded by so many people. So it's gratitude for me. And the guy next to me with 3 months, you're just as pumped for them. Like it's fascinating because you're more pumped for the guys in the room that are picking up their like 24-hour, their 3-month chip, because they just made it night. And to them, like I remember me, 90 days to me felt like 20 years, because it was like you're so close to like when you stop that it every day seems like a fight. And you're like, everybody's like running, like you never met this guy from Adam. You're like shaking people's hands. You're like, congratulations. Like you're just so pumped. And I was more pumped for the guy next to me than I was kind of for me, because it was kind of just like, you just are very appreciative. You're very grateful to be there, and you think through things. You remember the days you went when you were nervous or scared, or but yeah, it was excited, probably not, but very appreciative, and then very grateful, because you think about, it's funny because I went into this room and there was immediately 4 people that I recognized that are always there. 100%. I can name them, like that are always there. And then, but also the room, it was for whatever reason was like half the size that it used to be. And so, yeah, it's appreciation and being grateful, but then, there are so many, parallels, I think, to training, like you said, to Ironman, where it's like I wasn't nervous. It was just like I was really, and we've talked about this a lot before, is how a really great way to approach your biggest race is just to be very grateful that you even get to make it to the start line, that you got in the water, that you were able to participate in it, and that you just kind of made it through. But then, like the next day, I forgot that I went, like the day before, like until I saw like my chip, my middle console or whatever, because you just kind of go back to what and that's like the important thing. And you and I discuss this a lot in terms of basically everything's in life is it's great to celebrate. It's okay to throw yourself a pity party every once in a while, but make those like the anomalies, but try to stay kind of in the middle, because it keeps you grounded. That doesn't mean you can't be celebratory, or you can't get down, or you can't be happy, you can't be sad. It just means try not to stay there, because that's when you get kind of self-pity and self-loathing, and then you kind of get too celebratory and you get too content. It's kind of like, just kind of keep things even, because the goal obviously is to go back and get my 9-year and then your 10-year, you know, but it's still, yeah. So just a lot of appreciation, and more appreciation and gratitude than anything. And the longer that I've gone from being sober, it used to be more, I used to still feel like a whole lot of shame and guilt of getting it, because I think about all the things the person I was before that, and all the things that I got through. And it always reminds me of like that week, you know, my family's like the intervention that they did, and like and how hard it was on my entire family. But the farther I've gone from that, and the more good that I've done, you know, I always think life is more about, you know, the net positive, you know, that you do in life, that we all have our shortcomings and the things that we totally whiff on or foul up. But as long as you kind of do what you can do and turn around and make your amends and move forward, then it's about, you know, a net positive. And I truly feel, especially the last 3, 4, 5 years, that I've really impacted and created a net positive that greatly outweighs any kind of, you know, negative, you know, that I had before then. So now it's just more about, you know, appreciation and gratitude, and just being thankful that I've made it this far, because it's definitely not the norm. You know, it's just statistically not in your favor to make it past a certain amount of time without having a kind of a relapse. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
That's really cool, man. When we think about our parallels and stuff like that, I was just talking, you know, I think I just did my 8th Ironman, right? So it's in a weird way, it's like that parallels too.
It is, yeah. And you get your 8th medal, and I get my 1-year chip.
Yeah. So, but I just think that there's something really good in there, because, you know, we all go through this Ironman stuff or triathlon, and we're all at different phases of it. And I love what you were saying about how you're excited about the 3-month chip or the 24-hour chip and things like that, because, you know, it's new to them. And we've talked about this a lot, and how I think, you know, probably in a similar way, I felt like you did going into my 8th Ironman, that kind of like I tried to just be more grateful. And I know I came off after the race as a little disappointed in myself and things like that. But, you know, upon reflection, I'm certainly grateful I'm able to do this kind of thing. And I'm late in my 50s, right? And it's like, wow, you know, you don't even appreciate it until, like, you know, maybe you go back for a class reunion and stuff, and you kind of look around and you're like, everybody's like, wow, man, you know, you're doing good or whatever. But it's just because we're all at a different phase in this thing. And I think it's important to recognize that certain people are going to be more excited. And it's a weird cycle, because you are going to be super excited. But I think overall, like we talked about that homeostasis thing, and you were just talking about kind of how to stay level. And I think that is ultimately really the goal in a way. But it's frustrating, because I think back to when I used to have, many, many years ago, when I used to have that t-shirt business, and my business partner, he was always right on line. He's just mellow, content. Nothing really got him going. I'm like, dude, why can't you ever get excited? We had planned this big party and like open housing, and I was like, yeah, he goes, yeah, it was nice. It was nice. What are we printing tomorrow? And I'm like, but I always, in a way,
I feel triggered right there. I feel like you're looking at me, kind of.
It's like, here we go again.
Here we go again. Yep.
No, but like, but I do think that's, you know, and I don't know if you go through these cycles, but, you know, like with my race, I felt like I probably didn't train as well as I should have. And then you have like shame or guilt about like, oh, I should have done this better. I should have been, you know, wish I had started earlier in the cycle, all these kind of things. And I don't know if you ever have those feelings like on a daily, like I was getting out of control in my head about things.
You and I have talked about this a lot, and there's a few similarities there. Like when you hear you talk about, you know, going to your first Ironman, it's kind of like, to me, like when you see people doing their first Ironman, you see people like, you know, on the street, like running, you know, slower than you think you do, or walking, or like working really hard to do something, or, you know, barely getting to the finish line. Like that's why it's so much fun to go back to the finish line at midnight to watch these people finish. No matter if you're a 9-hour, a 10-hour, an 11-hour, 12-hour, you're an experienced athlete, you're a seasoned athlete. To me, going back to the finish line or just staying around for the finish line and watching those midnight finishes. Like I'm always reminded of Louisville. Like no matter what, is people would be inside 4th Street Live, beaten on the side of the rails, just going absolutely ballistic. I mean, it was so loud in there. It's unreal. I get chills.
Too loud for me.
Too loud for me. The whole guy. I mean, Jesus, too loud for me. Beating on the rails, going nuts for total strangers.
Yeah.
They were pumped because they're like, I know what you've been through, and you've just made it. And to me, that's like the kind of, for me, it's like the same equivalent, like getting your 24-hour chip or your 3-month, your 60. You're like, you're so fresh into this. You're so new. Like I remember how it felt to do that for the first time and how pumped. So you get equally, if not more pumped for them than you were for yourself. But going back to what you said about, looking back at your Ironman and thinking like, what could I have done better? That is part of it. I think like, because, and we've talked about this with people that we know, it's like people always say there's a huge difference in being in not drinking and being sober than it is being in recovery, in that you can just be someone who doesn't drink, but you could, be what people would consider like a dry drunk. Like you're unhappy, you're miserable, you can't stand things in life. You don't have a lot of things going for you. You don't really work on things. And so the only thing that's changed about your life is the absence of alcohol. But the true mission or goal for someone who gives up drinking is to have this whole different life, because you've given up drinking allows you to do different things, and be a different person, and really push through in recovery. And so I think everyone, at least myself, like when you pick up your chip, you look back through and you're like, have I been working hard enough? Like, because you always recite the steps when you get started. You write the promises and the reason that we're there. And it sometimes can feel like a lot, and sometimes I know that I personally kind of think like, am I doing enough as someone in recovery to set an example, or to, to be, like I think you always have this like tug towards being service minded, like in helping other people that have been in that situation. Which is why, I think coaching comes easy, for me, is that's very much the same thing. But I think it's healthy, right? And I know you said you were disappointed after Chattanooga, but I think that's important because it matters, right? It still matters to you. It's not something you're just kind of going through the motions, right? Like that'd be like me going into the meeting. Like I was still like, even like going through the topic of the day, I was moved. Like it was very like impactful. I was into it. It wasn't like I left feeling void and no feeling at all. Right. Mm-hmm. Which is what I think some people get to the point with their training with long distance racing and kind of checking the box of doing their usual 70.3 or their usual marathon or usual Ironman. It was like, you don't have any feeling because you're no longer invested, And so I think, what I keep hearing you say about being disappointed in that, you can still be grateful, but you can still be disappointed, right? Because I think that shows you're invested, but I also think it shows that you have a healthy level of perspective and also introspection to recognize where you feel like you may have not done as good enough job as you've done in the past, and that leads you to be disappointed. Which I think we all have that, And I think there's a difference in being disappointed because you may have felt that you didn't do enough work, and you could have, because you still probably think that your best race is still ahead of you. I feel the same way about myself. That's a huge contrast in setting unrealistic expectations and being disappointed. Right? And it's a healthy thing to do, I think, is to be disappointed, because it means you still care. Which is true, about being in, recovery. It's you have to be, again, they always call it a selfish program. I feel like it's not, but it's about, doing things and kind of challenging yourself. Like, are you doing enough? Because it really does come down to doing things for other people, right? And being service minded and being open and honest. And while it's obviously Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's about anonymity, and you don't ever talk about the people you see in there or what you hear in there. But I think it's very much a service minded, but doing things for others and helping others is a huge part at the core of what it means to be in recovery. And I think that's very similar to you coaching and helping people and wanting the best out of that, but also remembering that it's not just all about not drinking, right? Just like it's not just all about the race. It's about the journey. It's about who you become in the process. It's about the things you do and you don't do. It's about doing the next right thing. It's about being consistent with it. That, you know, if you just make it to race day and all you do is get the race done and you're, you know, you complete your goal, but you still feel like you haven't done enough, or you're not good enough, or, you know, you've alienated your family and friends in the process, you've totally lost perspective and you've become obsessed with it, then was it a good thing? You know, it's like, and I feel like that's probably a way you could look back and think of, you know, picking up your chip and not feeling like you've done a good enough job in a lot of areas in life. So there's a ton of similarities. And I spoke to this, you know, in my weekly email that, you know, if you had told me that night that I went and got my first chip and I was scared to death and I had really no idea what I was doing, that I would, you know, be where I am now or even have 8 years, I'm like, you're nuts. Like, I can't even think that far ahead, you know, but it always goes back to one of the very first things that we talk about is that, and one of the phrases they use is, if you follow this simple program, because at its core, following the steps is insanely simple. It's almost too simple for people to believe that it actually works, right? You know, they think they need something very, very, very different, more extravagant, you know, prettier. You know, I got to go to Passages Malibu and sit by the pool and do this thing here and do this thing there. But really, it's just like, and you could apply it to anything in life, you know, but it's about, its simplest form. It's about just do the best I can today, you know, make good decisions, do the next right thing, try to do my best. And if I can do that, then I can wake up tomorrow and do it again. You know, instead of thinking like, because so many, we see this all the time as coaches, so many athletes sign up for a race and everything becomes about that day. You know, am I getting closer? Am I doing better? Am I getting faster? You know, like, what can I see day to day? Like the weight of that, I can't imagine feeling every day like, all right, I've got to make it the rest of my life. Holy shit. Like, I don't know if I can make it till tomorrow, like, or make it to next week. Like, I just made it through the day and I'm like celebrating that I made it through like week 1. And you're asking me how, you know, and telling me I got to make this 20 years. Like, that's just too much. And then what happens is then it becomes so focused on 20 years or even 1 year that you're like, you lose sight of it. You burn out. You probably, you know, and then you start to overthink things and you're obsessed with it. And you just lose perspective. And just about listening to your body and making good choices and being around positive people. And there's just so many, I mean, I could go on forever. It's like, there's so many similarities in just doing the work and following a simple program than it is being, you know, the crash and burn stuff. That's the shortcuts to doing things. You know, it's like you get out of treatment and they want you to go to 100 meetings or 90 meetings in 90 days. Excuse me? Yeah. Like, that's a huge level of commitment. Like, to go to one thing every single day, no matter what, find time to do it, do this, work through these things. You're like, I got a 90 and like, no, I'm out. Like, that seems like a lot. They're like, if you can't do the simple things, how do you expect to do the hard things? And then you do it. And then you're like, I get it, you know, because it sets you up to hopefully go through, you know, life in a much more manageable way.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much there.
Have fun unpacking that one.
No, but I think what it's as you're saying that, I there's a lot of things for me as somebody who has been into coaching now for, you know, not as long as you, but is getting thicker and deeper into it. And I think, as you said, the longer you're in your program, the more you want to give back. And I think you'll see that. Like with everything, you know, it's like people always say, if you want to be successful in life, you got to give a lot of your money away or whatever. You know, you have to help others along the way because that's the most important thing. And that's a big part of, I think, what I am sort of colliding with here. It was always sort of just me going to the finish line, you know, before last year when everything got canceled. But up to that point, I wasn't as heavily in coaching. I was helping out with some other things in the club and everything. But now I'm at a point where I have been in this thing a long time, and it's better for me to reach out. I mean, I do get a little bit more of a charge out of seeing other people now. But as you were saying that, I think that one of the biggest struggles for people who have been in the sport a long time is, and I say I was grateful upon reflection of my race, but I don't think I was as grateful as I needed to be up to it. And I think that boils down to what you're saying is doing the work in recovery versus being sober. And I'm sort of like not, like doing the work in my training. In other words, waking up in the morning and doing my, being great gratitude stuff, or, really being in that place more, because I'm the guy that's like always about, I've been into meditation and things of that nature for years, but it's no different than it's a little bit on the dry drunk side because I'm not consistent with it. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm not, my thing has always been be in the moment. Right. And I think we get so caught up. It's so easy to get trapped in this idea that the world is burning, everything's going out of control. If you're looking outside yourself for, stimulation or whatever it is. And here I am kind of in the middle. I feel like that's sort of how it goes a lot with me, is back and forth. I go hard into the meditation for a couple of weeks or a month or something like that. And then I kind of lose it. And then it's so easy now to get distracted. And the next thing you know, I'm like, checking out, what's going on in Austria and the protests and things like whatever. And then it's like, oh my God, it's like crazy, man. Things are going on everywhere. And my head is just about ready to explode. But I do think that, you
always make me feel dumb with like life current events. You're like, hey, did you see that, that tribe 25 miles out in Zimbabwe and what's going on there? I'm like, I have no idea what's going on in basically most of Hamilton County, which is where we live. So
yeah,
you're always up on current events.
It's not a bad thing. I had it's like step one for success in your life. Turn off the news.
Turn off the news. No,
but seriously though, I just want to like get on that a little bit more, because I think I was, with training a lot of times lately over the last year or so, it's been more of a, I don't know, like a chore. And it's like there's just, I just think if I could get more baseline gratitude for the ability to do it, because I do feel like when, we had a lot, maybe 8 or 10 people race in Arizona and some in Cozumel this weekend. And I did find myself excited. I was tracking people, that I'm coaching, and they did good. And that gives me a little juice, and I think that's more about like, oh, maybe you need to get out of your head a little bit and get out of this crap going on, and just like, take it day by day, like they say, one day at a time, but like one moment at a time. And that just sort of snowballs into more of a solid, like I was saying I feel like maybe when you went there, it was more in your bones than in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and I'll readily admit this about myself. And what you said about, I'll go a month with, doing yoga or meditation. And I think we all do this. Like, we do this in everything in life. People do with, we see with athletes all the time doing physical therapy. They're like, yeah, I just kind of slacked off lately. Basically, they start slacking off when they feel great, right? Like, we get to this point to where like we always gravitate, maybe not gravitate, but we always tend to like really go through life with a fine tooth comb and pick out the things and get rid of the things. Maybe we start eating better, we start drinking more, water, start feeling better. We start exercising, do yoga, meditation. We're not on social media as much. We don't check the news. We just keep our world really, not really small, but focused, right? The things that give us things back. Then we get to a really, really, really good spot, and we're like, we get lazy again, right? We just stop it because we don't need it. We don't need to be focused because we feel great. And then
is it part of that? Is it that self-sabotage?
I think it's both, right? Because if I look back at the most, and this is something I'm very guilty of, it's like when I look back and I look at the period of time in my life when I was the most focused on recovery, it was during the hardest period of my life, where everywhere I was going through a 1 or 2 year period was just
a lot of sense.
Yeah. And now, I was, every day I woke up, I took Kona for a walk, or I walked myself, and I went and I did my morning prayers and meditation as I walked, no matter what the temperature, I remember the first race I did was Muncie 70.3. The year we did Louisville. I hadn't done it that morning, and I went to a porta-john and I sat down and I did my prayers and meditation because I hadn't done them yet that day. Like, that's how focused I was about just doing the small, because it wasn't so much about doing it that day. It was about making sure I do it today, so I know to do it tomorrow. And that's so much about creating a pattern and creating behaviors. So it might not mean as much today, but as long as you keep that link together, then you're more likely to do it tomorrow. And to me, it was like, I got up, I walked Kona, no matter where I was, and I did it. I did my prayer and meditation. I said things I needed to do. I, either went to a meeting or I talked to my sponsor, texted my sponsor. And then when I laid my head that at night, I went through like the certain list of things. And I was just very, and that was probably I would say the best, not that I'm in a bad place now, but that was like the best place I was in my recovery, because it was also because everything else in life around me was like in chaos, right? It was just an unpredictable, and my stress and anxiety was high. But that was the time in my life I was the most stoic. Like I was the most centered. I wasn't unflappable, but I was just steady, like about everything in life. And then again, like, chaos is removed, and obstacles are removed. And I still do those things occasionally, but I don't do them every day, and I think a lot of that is, a lot of life is different now. Like I do consider, and I was going to say this anyway, but I do consider this podcast and coaching athletes in our community a gigantic piece of my recovery, because one of the scariest things for athletes, or not for athletes, and for athletes, the scariest things for people in recovery is to feel lonely and isolated, and to not have a community. And we have a community. We have a group of people that are unwavering, with their support and love and care for each other, and not just your success in triathlon, but your success as a human, human being. And then this podcast where I get to talk to my best friend twice for 2 hours. Like, no one does that. Like they text occasionally, like, yeah, it's my buddy, from back home. And you're like, I've never heard of them. Like, yeah, we went to school together. They're my best friend. You're like, cool. Is a huge piece. So some things that have been, are different, but it all goes back to, I think that when the biggest challenges in our life, whether it's a race you have or a job, a promotion coming up, it's like we always kind of, and I don't think we should be expected either to be on, right? 24/7, 7 days a week, every week out of the year, because I think that's not sustainable. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace in that area, but it is, I think, very telling in that we nail things down to get through a patch, right? Or a period of time, and we do it successfully. But then I think what it also does is, and so we make it through, or we make it through a race, and we did good enough, right? We made it. We did good enough. We survived. So we think that's all that's required. But we don't take into consideration, and I do the same thing, is that we think, well, who says it can't be better, right? All the time, right? And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but that constant pursuit of just the details, right? The small things, that it's not about making it through or being fine. It's about living the best quality of life you possibly can. Same thing goes for training. It's not about being perfect, but if you can maybe start doing things sooner, or have just a general appreciation for being healthy, right? And that was honestly like one of the things that I observed when I was in my meeting, was just some, kind of like unhealthy. Some people looked, and just kind of like, man, I'm so grateful that I can like that I went out for a run this morning, that I'm being, and we tend to take those things for granted, because we also oftentimes forget how far we've come, right? You started out doing a Couch to 5K program. Like I know that picture vividly in my mind of the one that you've had before, in your East Nasty shirt, like doing the Couch to 5K program. And now you're here 8 years later talking about being disappointed and creating, finishing an Ironman, and just how far we've come. Right. And I think that we all do that to an extent, because we get so far from who we were and what got us in, and the appreciation along the way, that we're always we're less focused on and appreciative of how far we've come in these, or you've come in these 8 years, to why am I not further along, or where am I going to be in the next 8? That we sometimes just never appreciate fully the present. And then, one of the things in AA is about, not shutting the door on the past, and that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think we could all be, reminded to appreciate how far we've come, but also to learn, from the things that we've done or accomplished.
Mm-hmm. That's that transcend and include philosophy that I've always read about and believed in, is you have to bring what it is in the past, but whatever, learn from it. I just think that when we're trying to train, or when we are training, and what you said about recognizing that, man, it feels good to be healthy, and so many, like I think back a lot to that first year when we were working together and how hard that was for me, and how I think I really was flying on adrenaline most of the time because I pushed things so fast. Went from that couch to 5K to this to that to that, and the next thing you know, I've signed up for Ironman Wisconsin. It all happened within a year and a half, and I wasn't even a runner or any of that stuff, but it was all painful, but I was so jacked about it. And then I remember the next year I was kind of like not sure if I even wanted to stay in the sport. And I'm sure a lot of people go through this. And then I kind of decided late to sign up for Louisville, maybe in, April or May of the next year when it was in August. And I'd kind of been, my old thing about hanging around and being in decent shape. And I just turned it up. And then it was finally, I think it was maybe the next year, but then I finally started getting a grip on this. And I started actually, that feeling when people say, I felt good today, and even when you're doing hard stuff, there's a difference because whatever, like some of the runs, the Moneghetti run or whatever, the one where you're running and you're going hard and then you're backing on and you're going hard again. Like to be able to differentiate the difference between, really, hurting and trying to just force that or just feeling strong to the point where you own that, and like, how do you build that up? And I think that, I think what happens with me a lot is I get behind the 8 ball so much that I'm kind of in that pain threshold more than I am that feeling in control and feeling healthy and strong. It's just more of, I'm just kind of, trying to climb that rope faster than I should be. And it hurts, my shoulders hurt, my neck hurts. And like, I'm like, why do I keep doing this? And, I think a lot of us maybe get in that place. And that's the thing about patience and really just going into, like, I like what you said about that Porter John story, because it is one of those things where, if you're not feeling it maybe, and you got a 30-minute run, but you go out the door and you do maybe 15 or something like that. And then it's just like you got that link connected. And then all of a sudden you don't have that, because it's like a mind virus or something that triggers, and it's like, damn, I missed yesterday and now I'm way behind and whatever the case may be. And this is a good way just to keep it going. I like what you said about how you used to be so regimented with that, but now it's maybe fleeting a little bit. But I think what happens is you've substituted that in a lot of ways by, you get up early and you're with Hayden, and then you're pouring out love to him. It's the same thing, maybe even more powerful, just as long as it's a routine, or whether it was walking Kona, getting up and taking care of somebody else, right away. And that sort of, that kind of stuff just, builds and adds up over time. I think it just gives you a better, healthier view on just your daily workouts and stuff. And just like, it isn't that important, as you don't put as much pressure on it. So I think it's a freer experience and you're more in tune with how good it may feel.
Continuing to make small, seemingly irrelevant choices that are good will always delay making really bad, huge choices. And that's like keeping that link alive. What I think it does is it actually it deters you entering that phase of like self-pity and self-loathing.
Yeah.
Because once the link is broken, right? And it's not just missing a day, but maybe it's missing like 2 days. You're like, well, the link's broken. What's the point?
Right.
It's like, what's the point getting back and starting over again? Oh, I'll start over next week. And then you regress and you're like, now I got to start over again. Here I go, way out of shape. And then you're
the worst.
It is. And you're less committed, right? Because you feel like it's totally, so like even, and that's not talking about, being perfect, right? Or not missing a workout. It's about just finding like these very small, but routine based things in life that help give you the confidence and the focus to continue to maintain this level of a healthy, positive pattern in your life. It doesn't have to be, like you said, for me, it didn't have to be this one thing, every morning. It could change into, the consistency of, doing 2 podcasts a week, and for, X number of years, and obviously like other things in life that keeps you focused and keeps you grounded and being, service minded, and how it's, like, it's funny because like sometimes people ask like, hey, do you have a sponsor? Do you sponsor people? I'm like, yeah, I sponsor every athlete that I work with, because that's basically also the truth, because you're a therapist, but it is one of those things where you have to by committing to doing like small things, right? Which is what we should all do. And I think strive to do in training is that it'll always come sometime. And I think that's what it's hard to wrap your brain around when it comes to, training and racing, is that people develop at different rates, right? So we all expect for whatever reason for everyone to, produce the same kind of performance after X number of weeks or X number of months or X number of years, or that Billy has only been doing this, for, the next, 5 months, and he's already doing this, and I've been doing it for 3 years, and where is mine? It's like and that leads us to, selfish and self-deprecating thoughts. But the point is that it will at some point come. Like it will that's one of the lines at the end of this thing called the promises in AA. It's like, these will be fulfilled sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but that's hard to wrap your brain around. Cause you think like, oh, well, once I get sober and go through the 12 steps, like, it's supposed to rain dollar bills and opportunities and forgiveness. And that's just not the case. And the thing is, and the same thing with training is that you expect all these things to happen. You put a date on the calendar, but 99 times out of 100, you get this result or you reach this benchmark or you hit this PR on a random ass day of the year, in a training day or in a race you didn't think you'd do well, or you hopped in a 5K on Thanksgiving and all of a sudden you obliterated, your PR, even though you've been chasing it for years and years and years and years and years. It shows up because it was time. And but the main reason it showed up was because you kept showing up. And just because you want it to happen in year one doesn't mean it's going to happen in year one, but it also doesn't mean it's not going to happen, right? And that's like a huge thing that you see with athletes that are continuing to age, right, and get older, like as we all are, but or convinced that they're not going to have a PR or their best days are the behind them, but they just keep chipping away. And then someday, like one of our athletes, Dennis Myers, who is like seriously one of the nicest people on the planet, and introduced us to Angry Squid, which is way up on our
buddy.
Yeah, you're on our good list. And generally one of the best people you'll ever meet. He ran a half marathon this weekend and beat his half marathon PR from 7 years ago. Right. And he's in his 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, he's like my age.
Yeah, he's like your age. So, still a young chap. But that's just kind of one of those things where if you give up along the way because you think your best is behind you, or what you consider your quote unquote best, then you really will never know. Right. And I just think we've become so obsessed and enamored with everything happening quickly, right? And we have to get this, we have to get that, it has to be done now, I want a PR right now, I want to do this on 3 days a week, I want to do this on 2 days a week, I want it to do it next year, like I want to call for Kona next year, let's do it next year. And you're like, well, that's, the chances of that are not great, considering this, you have to be realistic. But you also say like, but you never know. But the point is not the qualification. The point is to do the work that will put you in the position. And it might be next year, it might be 2 years, it might be 3. The point is to just do the work and understand that by doing that, at the core of who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, that all these other good things will happen with your training, with your health, with probably in life. And that eventually, again, it might not happen quickly and it may happen slowly, but it always kind of happens on time. And I think that's always that kind of optimistic, I think, view that we should all take, and that I'm not done yet. I'm not quite done yet. You and I both feel like we have our best Ironman PRs, ahead of us. And some people might think that's naive or overly optimistic, but I just feel it in my gut. And seriously, what's wrong with having that? I'd rather have that thought and feeling and optimism and belief than I'm getting older and I'm never going to PR again. I'm just and using age as an excuse. Yes. Does it make it easier? No, but it's, again, it's small, like, we'll talk triathlon for just a quick second. Is that so many people make so much to do about their age in life and not their age in triathlon. Like if you're getting older, you'll only sport for like 1 year, then hopefully you're going to get fitter and be fitter the next year. So it's not about just the age on the clock, how long you've been alive. It's about how long you've been in the sport and and most importantly, how long you've been doing the right things. But yeah, there's a whole lot to be said for keeping that link together. Because it is once, but that's the other thing. The more you do it, the more you connect those pieces, the harder it is to break. because it's just become part of what you do and who you are. But then when it does break, you got to try to get right back on the horse as quickly as you can, because the longer you stay away from it, the weaker it gets and the less attractive it is to kind of keep going, because it does take work, right, to do these small things. And that's why I think most of us kind of get lazy with it when times aren't as tough as they are when we were doing them right.
Yeah. And quickly, because I'm older and I get the feeling like whenever people start saying, well, getting old sucks or whatever, I just like squash that down so hard. I mean, like, to me, it's just a sort of a mental trick that I have to play. It's like doing, just doing things around the house or lifting things or whatever. I just don't want to give in, and I know you eventually you do or whatever, but that's, and sometimes that may like come off like I'm going to PR as a cocky or whatever. It's just a mental game that I have to play with myself to kind of keep putting me back into the fire and keep testing things and, just to, keep younger, because that is my goal, is to feel younger as I get older. It's not easy, but there are ways to do this, I believe. I mean, what I love to think about sometimes is like, some days you feel better than others, like out of the blue, you just feel amazing.
Mm-hmm. Some days you don't.
To me, and some days you don't. But to me, that is always the day, right? It's like, oh, if I can still feel like that, why can't I feel like that more often? And until like you just feel like crap every single day of your life, then it's going to be a tougher turnaround. But if you have that in you, you know that you have it in you. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
I just hold on to those things. Remember, it's like a workout, right? You had a good workout, man. You still got it. Even though you haven't had it in a little while, it may be still in there.
It's still there. Listen, it's all still there.
It's all still there.
It's just the frequency of how it's the frequency of it being there usually comes with the frequency of doing it, right? It's like the more you do it, the more likely it is they're all going to go well versus they're all going to go bad.
Yeah. Usually happens after good sleep.
Right. Exactly. See, full circle, baby. Full circle.
Bringing it around.
Bringing it around. We hope you enjoyed today's non-triathlon but related podcast. If you want to, visit our website, C26triathlon.com. It's your one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you are interested in taking advantage of our club membership, you best do it now because it is filling up rather quickly. We have the Club Plus program, then also the Club Hub package. Check that out, read it up. It's under the coaching tab, click Club. If you have any questions about that specifically, you can always contact Mike. He is at crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you have anything specifically for me, you can reach me at C26coach@gmail.com.
Yeah, hit me up. I'd love to hear from you.
Hit him up.
Hit me up, crushing
hit him on the hip.
See, that's how I stay young. Hit me up. Isn't that what the kids say?
I mean, you're a little bit old to be saying hit me on the hip, but could lead to something bad.
Say hit me on the hip.
Yeah.
That's
dial me up on the
thing,
dial
right?
me up on the rotary.
Dial me up
dial me up on the rotary.
Do they still have those, like regular phones?
They've got to.
Yeah.
Maybe not the rotary, but maybe I'm sure they have wall mounted.
Oh, they do have them, but I mean, they have still landlines.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure my grandma has one.
Yeah, we still have one here, right, for the alarm. Is that technically what it is?
I don't know what that means. I'm not sure either of us are going to be using
I don't
that.
either.
I don't know who's going to answer when you pick up. Probably some stranger. It's probably the FBI. That's all we got. We'll come to you again one more time this week on Monday. We'll bring you your Thanksgiving Day cast. Probably a little bit shorter because you know what? It's a holiday. You're taking a holiday. We'll probably take a short little breather.
We're gonna cooking cast. We're gonna cook.
we're the basting podcast 533. How to baste a turkey. Yeah, hurry slowly.
How to baste your own turkey.
Yeah,
out in a 4-hour ride.
Yeah, and just for the record, it's dressing, not stuffing. For those of you that are totally like don't know how to do Thanksgiving, you do dressing. You don't do stuffing.
Oh.
You do turkey and ham. You don't never do just ham. You do turkey. Dark meat is unquestionably the best. You combo the dressing with the turkey. Pecan pie is allowed. Regular pie is encouraged. Sweet potato casserole is huge thumbs up, especially if it's got something sweet on top, like some marshmallows or some brown sugar. That's a huge thumbs up. Lima beans are okay.
Cranberry? Just
I'm not a big cranberry sauce guy. I just people start to introduce like relish, like cranberry. Like nobody has time for relish on Thanksgiving. Like stop doing relish. What else is a big faux pas of mine for Thanksgiving? Rolls are encouraged.
Did you say mashed potatoes?
Listen, you can't ever go wrong with mashed potatoes. They're kind of like they're the side item for all side items. Like they're like, hey, sure, mashed potatoes. I put a little bit of salt and pepper on there, golden. Rolls are encouraged. Crescent rolls are highly encouraged.
Oh,
you don't like crescent rolls?
they're all right.
What do you mean? Are they too fancy for you? You're probably a Sister Schubert's guy.
You're probably you always pull them apart. You don't
have to pull them apart. You don't have to like unwind them.
Shape.
They're kind of long and weird shaped. What else is a must have for Thanksgiving? I don't know. Let us know our must haves on our Facebook group. Must haves for Thanksgiving. It's obviously football. You don't have to do presents. That's just because it's not Christmas.
Just a quick.
You don't do appetizers, but yeah.
Both our teams are doing all right again.
Yeah, go Vols, baby. We're back. We're
Badgers.
bowl bound.
We're back.
We'll probably play. I'm guessing a bowl game.
Spanked by Ohio State in the Big Ten championship again.
As long as
we'll be there.
Yeah, the Vols are gonna make it. We're going bowling. We'll probably play a Big 10, Big 12 game. We'll probably beat the dog crap out of one of them.
Probably play Minnesota.
Like we always do.
That's my prediction.
You think I'm gonna play Minnesota?
That's my prediction.
We'll put up 60 on them probably, and they'll probably score
they got a good defense.
Yeah, for that conference, they're slow as molasses. Where every running back runs a 5.2 40.
We got to beat them first, and then we get to go to Indy if we beat them.
So you play Minnesota this weekend. We play Vandy.
Big rivalry with Minnesota. All you Minnesota fans out there.
What do you guys win if you leave like that?
We've won 18 out of 19 games.
What do you guys win?
It's a huge rivalry.
You guys win a jug?
That's Paul Bunyan's axe.
Oh, you win the Paul Bunyan axe?
That's the best.
Give a quick prediction, because Michigan fans are also way up there in my fans that are just like unrealistic all the time. Your team is so mediocre, it's not even funny. What's your Ohio State Michigan prediction?
Where's that game at?
Doesn't matter.
No, not too much. Ohio State's going to win that game by at least 2 touchdowns.
I was going to say 30.
30?
30.
I don't think so. Michigan's got a pretty decent defense.
Yeah, again, against regular, whatever Big 12 teams.
Hey, they shut us down, but that was before we were us.
That's true. It's all about how you and just one last parting gift. Florida Gators, you guys suck.
Oh, man.
That's outstanding. Watching you guys crumble.
Yeah.
See you later, Dan Mullen. Bye.
Hey, I'm just going to put this out because I'm sure a lot of people don't watch Wisconsin football, but we got a new running back, and I know you always say we always have these running backs, but he's 17 years old.
Yeah, I know. He's unreal.
7 straight 100-yard running games. He's 6'2", 238. I saw him. They did a thing. He squatted like 650. 17.
Holy crap.
The dude is unbelievable. He had like 200 yards against Nebraska.
And Hendon Hooker is on Mel Kiper's big draft board. Hendon Hooker, our quarterback.
He's on the draft board?
He's on the draft board. He's like sixth best quarterback coming out. If he leaves, pray to God he stays. We need one more year of him.
People are just hitting stop right now on the podcast.
Yeah, that's all right. Whatever.
But that's all right. We'll put it at the end.
It's your
that way,
bonus
if,
cats. That's why it's the end.
Fans.
Stop. He's hanging around like it's it's almost time. If you don't like college football, you probably don't like our podcast either. But
there's a lot of people that don't like college football. And I think that list is growing.
Oh, whatever. We went over an hour. This is your overtime. We won't bill you for it, but we'll see you Thursday.
See you, man.